This next training video will show you how to add the heat program to a case. We're just going to pick up where we left off on the last video. If you haven't watched the first two videos, which is the introduction to eRep and then also how to register a household, you'll want to watch those videos first before coming to this video. So we're just going to pick up where we left off on the same case. This is Timothy City and his wife Mandy. Um, we've already registered the household, just a refresher real quick. So if you go to evidence, you'll see that we've put in the household information for both household members. And now from the case home, what we want to do is we want to go to new program. And then you'll see a drop down here and you'll want to pick the appropriate program. So right now we're registering heat. So you want to click on heat and then the application date. So we're treating today as the application date. And that's all you need to do. And then you click create program. Sometimes after you click create program, it takes even up to a minute for it to populate the information we need. So you just need to be a little bit patient. But it does take a few seconds. Okay, so once the information's populated, it'll bring you back here to the case home. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see that under programs, the heat program has now been added to the case. And you'll see that under status, it's in receive status. Okay, so if you came over here and clicked on heat, you actually clicked on it, it'll take you to the program home. So now, we've talked about several homes now. So the worker home, which is this tab here, the case home, which we were just on, and now this is the program home. Okay, so this is the heat program home. And this gives you additional tabs and information to get familiar with. And we will as we go through the process, but I wanted you to see what it looked like in here. And then when we get to the point where we will process benefits, we'll come back to this screen and walk you through what it looks like and how it functions. But for now, let's go back to the case home. So that's the first part, pretty simple. All you do is go to new program, click on the drop down, add heat, and now it populates down here under programs. Now the next thing you want to do is go to evidence. And you'll want to either click here on heat, the little icon up here, or you can scroll down and click on this here. Either way, it'll take you to the same exact place. And once you get in there, this is the evidence screen where you will put in all of the information that will help calculate the actual benefit if they are eligible. Okay, so once you're in, you'll want to click on add new heat/crisis. And then for household member, okay, so first there are a couple of sections here that you want to be aware of. So the first section is the energy assistance details. So this captures all of the information here, like do they rent or own? Is their rent subsidized? What type of dwelling is it? Their primary and secondary heating sources, that kind of a thing. And then add payment details is like the vendor information, whether or not the rent includes their utilities or not. This will determine whether the payment goes to the vendor or to the customer directly. But this is where we also capture utility account numbers and things like that. So let's start from the top, because we'll need to fill in all this information, and you want to make sure that it's filled in accurately in order to get the most accurate benefit, or the benefit calculation will be correct if we put in the information accurately. So the first field is household member, and you want to pick the actual PI, so Timothy City. And then the next field is, have you applied for heat assistance before? I'm going to say yes. Do you rent or own your home? Rent, is your rent subsidized? No. And then how much is your rent? $650. I'm just making this up. What you'll want to do is go back to your Steelworks application and just follow what you see there. It's just easier that way. So follow the information that you see on the original application and put in that same information here. And then for dwelling, you want to pick the type of dwelling they're in. So I'm going to go ahead and say single family home. Primary heating source is natural gas. Secondary is electricity. So one important thing to remember here, if they report on the application that they have a primary heating source that's natural gas, anything other than electricity, and they report that they don't have a secondary heating source, then you'll want to put electricity, okay? Um, unless they indicate that it's something else. So if they do say, you know, primary is propane, secondary is wood, then you definitely want to put that in. But if they're claiming that they don't have a secondary heating source, then you want to default to electricity, unless it doesn't make sense to do that. Okay, but in most cases, again, if they don't report a secondary heating source, go ahead and pick electricity as the default. And then you want to pick their primary cooling. I'm just going to say central air. And then verification of this, I'm just going to go ahead and say collateral contact, that we actually spoke to the customer, or we're taking the information from the application. Okay. I don't want to choose client statement because I've already tested the system and it will error out if you leave it on customer statement, because the system is reading that as it's not a viable verification. So as long as you choose collateral contact, hard copy, or imaged, you should be good. And then this next little checkbox here, the question is, does client-facing event beyond their control? This is a question that we need to be asking if a customer is in a crisis situation and they're applying for crisis benefits. And so this is a crisis-only question. So you would only mark this if crisis was being considered on at the same time and on the same application as the heat application. Um, if you happen to checkbox this and you know they're not being considered for crisis, don't worry. It's not going to hurt anything. It's actually programmed only to be considered when crisis is actually registered to the case. So, but for now, because there's no crisis associated with this case, I'm going to leave it blank. Now I'm going to go down to add payment details. So does your rent include utilities? If it does, then you would click yes. If it doesn't, then no. I'm going to pretend that it's not, so I'm going to click on no. And then I'm going to choose Rocky Mountain Power as my vendor. One thing to note with Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion, the system has been programmed behind the scenes to make sure that Rocky Mountain Power has 15 digits in their account number and Dominion has 10 digits in their account number. And this is to help kind of check and balance us to make sure that we're not shorting the account numbers or not putting incorrect account numbers. This doesn't catch when the account number is completely wrong. I mean, it could be 15 digits, but if it's completely wrong, the system's not going to catch that because we don't have an interface with Rocky Mountain Power. But it will at least catch when the digits are lacking, either too many or less than it needs to be. So for Rocky Mountain Power, the system knows it should be 15, so I'm just going to go ahead and put in 15 digits. Okay. And then account verification. Again, if I had a hard copy bill or imaged copy of that bill, I would choose one of these. If I called the vendor and verified the account number, then I would use collateral contact. The account status, you want to put what that is. If it's good standing, great. If it's and then what benefit percentage they are going to be putting towards that vendor. So we're just going to assume it's 50%. And then these next two fields here, amount owed and obligated amount, these are crisis only fields as well. Amount owed means the total amount of their bill, okay? So whatever that might be. And then obligated amount is how much the customer is being asked to contribute. Again, if you happen to put numbers in here and there's no crisis associated with this case, it doesn't do anything. It's not going to hurt anything. So if you do happen to do that, it's totally fine. But know that if there is a crisis and they are applying for crisis on the same day, then you would fill these out, okay? And then the last thing you would do is click on the PID or the person who the account belongs to, so the utility account. And if it's Timothy, then you would click Timothy, okay? And then you would click Add Record. Now you see that all that information has now popped down to Payment Summary, and it'll show you that the utility vendor is Rocky Mountain Power, the benefit is 50, it's in good standing, and the account number is there as well. Now we're going to pretend like the customer The other 50% is going to go to the customer because the gas is included in the rent, okay? Which we see sometimes. So does your rent include utilities? Yes. That's all you need to do aside from benefit percentage, okay? Everything else you needs to be left blank. Once you click yes, that the utilities are included in the rent, then the system won't allow you to go any further if you put more in, if you try to put a utility account number or choose a vendor, like it'll recognize that you're needing to pay the customer directly. So the only two fields that you would fill out is this field here for does your rent include utilities, and then benefit percentage. So 50% would go to the customer because their gas is included in the rent. And then you would click add record. And this is what you would see at the bottom. You wouldn't see a vendor, there's no account status, no account number. This is an indicator to you that the payment will go directly to the PI, okay? And that's all you would do, okay? A couple of questions have come up in the past about, if a customer it has Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion, and let's say, you know, Rocky Mountain Power, they want 100% to go to Rocky Mountain Power, and but they still want to get the Dominion credit, and so they put 0% towards Dominion. You can do that, okay? If you look at the benefit percentage drop-down list, you can choose 0% still as an option, okay? And then once you do that, you come in and do your dates. And then you would click save. All right, so now you put in your heat evidence. I want to show you what would happen if I needed to edit, a record. Okay, let's say I chose the wrong vendor for some reason. I could come in here and highlight the vendor, and you'll see that all of the information comes back and is populated now under this section here. So now let's say I needed to, it was actually Hurricane City that I needed to do. You would put in the new vendor, or the correct vendor, I should say, and then click update record, and now it would change that. That's how you would update a record, okay? If you needed to completely delete the record, that's also an option here. So you could click, you can highlight and then delete the record. It would have you start all over. So that's also an option. I also want to show you, let's say, for example, for Dominion, because I told you that Rocky Mountain and Dominion have programmed digits or characters that you need to have. So let's say Dominion, and then I'm gonna put in 9 digits. I want to show you what the error looks like when that happens. So it actually won't give you an error when you update the record or when you add the record originally. If the account number is short or too long, it'll error out when you try to save it here. So I'll show you that. Okay, so now you'll see at the top, I tried to save it, and now it says account number length must be 10 for vendor Dominion. Okay, so that tells me, oh, okay, I need to go back and check that account number. So I'll go back and check it and see, okay, I forgot the 2. So now I'm going to update the record. Now it's correct. I'm going to click save. And now my evidence is correct. Okay, so now you've put in, you've added heat to the case. You've put in your heat program evidence. And now you're done. Now you've added heat to a case, and assuming that you don't, you're not registering crisis at the same time, this would complete that phase of adding heat to the case. The next step would be checking your e-verifs, which will be the next video. How to check e-verifs, what to look for, that kind of a thing. But up until this point, you should have watched the introductory video to get familiar with the system. You should have watched the next video, which is registering a household. And then this video, we just went over how to add heat to a case and also the heat evidence to a case. And so the next video that you want to watch is the eVerifs video, how to understand eVerifs and interpret that information and how to apply evidence.